Welcome to the 14th presentation in our series on action learning. We're very pleased that you are joining us. This presentation is about designing an action learning program. I'm Carter McNamara of Authenticity Consulting. We're providing this series to make action learning more available and more accessible to everyone. This presentation is one in a series and they are best viewed in order, so please be sure to visit the website listed below for more information on the complete series as well as more information about our company. So now, let's get started. By now, you've reviewed the presentation about how to prepare for developing your program, and you've identified the project and desired results from your program as well. For this design activity now, it will be very useful to remember the previous presentations about each of the elements of the action learning process. In this presentation, you'll verify the type of program that you will have. Will it be single project or multi-project? Usually, people know by now, but after having thought about what they'd like to work on, as we did in the previous presentation, they might have changed their minds. So we'll quickly visit that decision again. We'll start getting clearer about the program structure, such as will it be part-time or full-time? How long will the program be? How many groups will there be? And how many times will they meet? And even for how long? Perhaps the best way to design the group is to produce a charter. That is, it's a document that specifies the group's purpose, its membership, ground rules, number of meetings and their frequency. We'll discuss that too. We'll also decide the approach to coaching, that is, how members will help each other in the program. You'll decide how learning will be collected and managed. Lastly, you'll decide what materials and tools you'll need. We should mention now the difference between designing a program and developing a program. The activities of design include deciding structures, groups, approaches, materials, and tools, as listed on this agenda. In contrast, the activities of developing a program include building those structures, groups, materials, and tools. We'll cover the activities of development in the next presentation, but the two different types of activities should be done separately. At this point, let's just be sure, are you going to develop a single project program or a multi-project program? We've had clients who set out to do one specific type, but after some discussion with us, they decided to do another. Have a discussion amongst the members of your design team. You might even want to re-review the presentation, Approaches to Developing Action Learning Programs. So, now that you're sure about the type of program, let's think about the structure of your program. Will it be standalone or integrated with others? One of the advantages of the action learning process is that it can be used as a standalone program to solve a problem or achieve a goal. Or it can be integrated with another program to enrich that program, for example, integrated with the training program. But most programs are part-time. That is, members don't attend meetings all day long for several days, unless, for example, it's an in-house executive program, or a program that needs to address a very complex problem in a very short amount of time. The length of a program depends on the purpose. Of course, if it's to address a problem very quickly, then the program might last, for example, 2 to 3 months. However, if it's a development program, such as for leadership, then the action learning component will last as long as the leadership program does. However, it can be very difficult to expect strong attendance during summer months, so it might be wise to avoid those months as well. If it's a single project program, then there's usually, but not always, one group. Sometimes more groups are assigned to a project, and in that case, it's extremely important that the actions and learnings are tightly integrated across all of the groups, maybe even into an overall project management plan. We've worked in multi-project programs that have had hundreds of groups that we've helped to develop. In those situations, there's a sponsor or even a team of people who work together to manage the program. Conventional wisdom among action learning experts is that 5 to 7 members is best for a group, but there's at least one model that suggests 4 to 8. Reginald Revens, the founder of action learning, said, "You can have a useful meeting with only just 2 people if they're engaged in helping each other, asking useful questions, taking actions, and learning at the same time." More importantly, with more than 8 people though, it's difficult for each person to really feel that he or she belongs and can participate. The frequency of meetings should be such that there's sufficient time between meetings for members to do actions. It's common to have 3 to 5 weeks between meetings. Less than that though, there's not enough time to do the actions and then to reflect on them. If it's a single project program, then members might need time to gather and analyze data as well. More than 5 weeks or so apart, and members lose momentum in the process. Regarding the design of the group, it's important that the group be given a written charter that specifies purpose, membership, how it will make decisions, who the representative of the program will be, who the client or sponsor is, and then what resources do they have to work with. The charter might also specify the number of meetings that are to occur and their frequency. Obviously, the group will use the action learning process in its meetings. Now, you might think about what you learned in the previous presentation about membership and groups. That will be helpful. Membership should include people who have strong interest in the project and have influence to take actions to address it. They should be somewhat familiar with each other, have time to attend meetings, and be comfortable working in groups. Many experts in action learning believe there should be strong diversity of members, for example, in values, perspectives, and opinions. Many times, though, the diversity emerges as the members are coached in meetings. Also consider, should members be required to be in the program, or is it voluntary? If it's a new program, consider having voluntary membership because that gets very quick buy-in to the program. The decision should be made as to whether the groups will be externally facilitated or self-facilitated. And if they're self-facilitated, will members facilitate one member doing an entire meeting, or will members rotate responsibility for various parts of a meeting? If a program is a bit weak in the action learning process, then it pays to have an external facilitator, at least at first. Other reasons for an external facilitator might be that members already have a strong bias against self-directed learning, or the culture is based on getting very quick answers to problems. Also, will the facilitator's responsibilities be primarily on managing the group agenda and ground rules, or will they also emphasize helping the team to learn from the process? The agenda of meetings will depend especially on whether the program is single project or multi-project. Single project meetings might include presentations about the project and status of progress on the project. Also, various stakeholders might be present to share their views and hear updates. Be sure to consider which ground rules will be useful in the meetings as well. The communications mode can be face-to-face or even virtual. Many people believe that groups aren't nearly as successful if they aren't meeting face-to-face. But if members meet face-to-face first in their meeting, then it's amazing how well they do in virtual meetings. Virtual meetings are done over the phone or internet. We've done hundreds of meetings virtually, and they can be very effective. In the earlier presentation about coaching and action learning, we reviewed the term coach. It has different meanings, so it'll be important for you to pick an interpretation now and be consistent with it throughout the program. For example, does it mean assistance from a facilitator whose primary responsibility is to help the group to learn from the process? That is, from a learning coach? Does coaching refer primarily to the nature of how members help each other in the group? Will coaching be based exclusively on the use of questions? Or can there be occasions for advice? And if so, will it occur only when the presenter asks for it? Also, is there a role for other means of help from members, including brainstorming or sharing materials? Is there a particular coaching model that you prefer? For example, GROW, the WIAL, or some other model that we talked about? While these questions might seem obvious, there are many strong perspectives about what should be and what should not be involved in action learning. So it's important to be clear on what practices will be in your program. It's usually best if a program takes a very intentional approach to capturing the learning and spreading it around. The previous presentation about capturing and spreading learning will be helpful now. An intentional approach would consider, for example, will the program use assessments to verify what learning the members will need to achieve? Will the program be based on certain competencies? For example, competencies that a certain type of leader might need to do a certain type of leading. Will the program base itself on certain theories of learning to explain how learning occurs in the program? And will the program focus on certain learning styles in addition to sharing questions and reflection? For example, visual or kinetic styles? Will the program include use of learning agreements or contracts to affirm the focus and responsibilities of each learner in the program? A good way to spread learning is to cascade groups. That is, where each member goes on to form and facilitate a new group. That way, many more people end up using action learning over time. Another way is to start more multi-project programs, because then each member can select his or her project and have the freedom to share learning. Programs use a variety of materials, and now's the time to be thinking about which ones you'll need. For example, guidebooks about facilitation and guidebooks about action learning or coaching for group members. How about reference cards that depict the agenda for meetings and perhaps some sample questions to ask during coaching? Members should have a list with contact information for the facilitator and members. Various forms will be needed, for example, for members to document projects they're working on, what actions they will be taking, and their learnings. There will be forms for evaluations as well. Some of the forms might be confidential to the members. Now let's look at what tools you might need. Think about any tools or aids that would be useful. For example, here's a list of some common ones, such as for organizational assessments, team assessments, or process assessments. We talked about some of these. You can get tools to help members with problem solving, with presenting, key skills in coaching such as listening, questioning, reframing, even for actions planning, change management, to capture the learning, and plenty of tools you might need for evaluation. Our free management library that we mentioned in the section on general resources has all of these tools. Thank you for viewing this presentation. We hope that you'll go on to the next one. You might benefit from the following resources to add even more detail to our overviews of action learning. The website Action Learning Central references an extensive amount of free resources, including about the action learning process, each of its key elements, examples of action learning programs, and tools for each aspect of action learning. There's even an action learning glossary with definitions for each of the common terms in action learning. Our company, Authenticity Consulting, also is available to answer your questions or to help you in any other way. Our firm does very successful action learning groups around the world and for a wide variety of outcomes and applications. There's also the free management library at managementhelp.org. You can find resources and tools for almost any activity in the workplace, including for many of the activities in action learning. You can find more about each of these three resources by going to actionlearningcentral.com/gratis and select the presentation entitled General Resources for Action Learning. Thank you.